Today, I am so thrilled to introduce you to this powerhouse of a woman whose story, honestly, is so captivating as much as her expertise is impressive. I am so excited to sit down with Dee Tomashoff, who is a licensed CPA, and her ambition initially led her down the path of becoming a CFO with dreams of that corner office and the breathtaking view, right? The one that we always dream of. But life had a different plan for Dee. After the birth of her daughter, she experienced a profound shift in perspective. And suddenly, the dream office transformed into this cozy space at home, and the beautiful view became the precious sight of her baby girl by her side. But here's the twist, my friends, is that this transformation didn't dampen Dee's drive. Instead, it fueled a renewed passion for growth and change. And for the past 3 years, she's been a guiding force for business owners, seamlessly balancing day-to-day operations while driving growth through data-driven strategies. It is so much my pleasure to introduce this conversation with Dee to you as she shares her journey of recalibrating priorities, navigating the world of business on her own terms, and making a meaningful impact. Whether it's through retainer relationships, consulting, project-based collaborations, Dee does it all and empowers her clients to reach new heights in their business and in their financial goals. Friends, I want you to get ready to be inspired, informed, and motivated, because this is what that big CEO energy is all about. And it's bringing you the stories of the trailblazers like Dee, who redefine success on their own terms and pave her own way. You are listening to That Big CEO Energy, where we talk all things business, life, marriage, and push you to a new edge of discovering what that big CEO energy means for you. Listen, I understand that we have barriers that we carry from when we were once employees, and those have impacted us as we continue to build our businesses. I'm here to walk alongside you and give you encouragement through interviews with friends and other women in business who have broken down those barriers and paved their own way. Tune in with me as we uncover some of the unconscious things that we do that keep us from building that big CEO energy we've always dreamed about. Let's dive in. Thanks, Dee, so much for being here today.
Absolutely. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Awesome. Well, we've already had a little bit of a fired up conversation before we even press record. So I'm sure that this conversation will take right off. But Dee is going to walk us through today the KPIs that we should really be thinking about as a business owner. Obviously, there are intangible and tangible KPIs that should probably exist. And so I just got done talking to Dee, and I'll kind of kick us off here and talk about it too, is I really measure them. Number one, because I think in my business as a solopreneur, I'm essentially by myself. So I don't even really know what I should be tracking, but also I do it because I think I have a little bit of trauma.
Yeah.
Corporate, if you will. You know, a lot of business owners sort of transition from a corporate environment or a business environment. And so we find ourselves kind of in business sorting through the things that maybe we should be keeping, maybe we don't want to keep from, PTSD rather from what we have. And so I love this. And I want to start kind of how you have landed in your beautiful business, because I know that's a little bit of a story that we should share with everyone. And then kind of, I'm going to let you deep dive into KPIs, how you sort of think every business owner should think about them, and what some of your best practices are. So let's start with kind of how the evolution of your beautiful business began.
Sure. So I started my business almost 4 years ago after my daughter was born. She's almost 4 at the end of the month. And really, I started my business because I wanted to have, the freedom of being home with her. A lot of times in life, right? Like life is about chasing those freedoms, and they can be time freedoms, financial freedoms, health freedoms is a big one. Like that's a big one for me, like being able to go see whatever doctor, right, I want whenever I need to. I'm a little crunchy, so I see lots of different types of doctors, practitioners, really, I guess. So really to have that freedom. But I come from a background as a CPA, and I always had like big goals. I really wanted to be a CFO of a business. And even before I was married or had kids, I kind of always had that like struggle of, I want to be a CFO, but I know that's going to come with a lot of sacrifices. Like, when I was working in corporate, I was working on weekends often in the office, like that's before like you could be working from home. And so I had that struggle. Like, if this is a path I want to be on, I'm going to miss things with my family and my kids on the weekends even. So even though I had like those big, goals, I eventually realized that it just wasn't worth trading my time, giving my time to somebody else. Like I would rather give my time to myself and build something that I could make work for me and my family while still hitting, the goals that I had for myself. And, of course, also contributing to my family. So really, I'm passionate about bringing my financial knowledge and my analytical mind to serving clients to help them be able to reach their goals too, because, we're all in business for freedoms as well. Like that's kind of all what we are striving for. A lot of people have that PTSD from being in the corporate environment, or a lot of people start their businesses to be with their families as well, or to take care of, a loved one that maybe they need to be around for more often. And so really using like my background and helping clients grow and reach certain markers in their business that they've been striving for has been really rewarding and important to me. Especially, I really love working with women because I just feel so empowered giving women more opportunities to grow their money and to use their money in ways that they want to. So that's kind of the big passions of mine.
I love that. And I love that your passion is to empower women to then empower themselves to make financial decisions, because financial decisions are really scary. And some of us don't have a great relationship with money. I was on a podcast a few weeks ago, and I had talked about the fact that I was a single mom for a really long time. And so a lot of money that came to me then was turned and cultivated into necessity, right? So my relationship was, I'm just going to use this money, pay what I can so that I can survive. And then when I started climbing the corporate ladder, it sort of shifted the other end of the spectrum is I have all of this money. I now can buy everything that I want. And I didn't know much about investing. I didn't know much about sort of setting myself up for emergencies and things of that nature. And it really became a little bit jarring when I decided to shift from corporate into my own business, because now that meant I was on the hook for all of my money, all of the moving pieces of my money, right? Taxes and all of the things that come with that. I mean, you don't even realize until you start unpacking your first year of business, like, what did I do?
Right.
How much do you pay yourself? What is the percentage? How much do you invest? All of those things. It becomes just a little bit of like overwhelm. Definitely. In addition to everything else you're trying to do in your business.
Right? Like, right.
Yes, like the added layer. And so I'm curious to know, like, what is kind of I'm sure you come across a lot of women in business that sort of show up in the same way. What are some strategies maybe that you can give us when the overwhelm sets in, as a business owner, as you're kind of like, oh my gosh, yeah, I guess I really do have to pay my taxes. I have to.
Yeah.
Do you have like a good, I'm asking for methods, mainly for myself, but because I'm year 3 and I'm still okay. I mean, I guess I pay the government money. I don't know. Sure.
I mean, I think really whatever, I am working with clients and advising them to look at whatever data it is, whatever type of analysis you're going to do, whatever the new thing is that you're bringing on, just really to start small, right? So with KPIs, for example, it would be incredibly overwhelming. And you get into that analysis paralysis if you're going to try to track 15 new KPIs right from the start, right? So I like to just say, pick 3 things that you want to, start with looking into, or maybe it's for taxes related, right? You just break down 3 areas of your business that you're going to tackle and look into. And they don't have to be the whole, gamut of what makes that up. But really, right? Just to start small and build on it. Build on it each month if you can. Build on it each quarter if that's, what it means. But really, if you, in any other area of our life, right? If we take on too much all at once, it's too much and we'll just stop. And the key to really, when you are taking a look at the underlying information of your business and where to go and the strategy behind it, you want to take action and build on the confidence of what you're learning, and a little at a time, you can start adding more as you feel confident and, secure in what you're taking a look at, right? Because really, what worth is it to look at 15 different metrics if you don't know what it's going to tell you, right? It's too much to figure out what it's telling you, and you're not really going to do anything with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. And I think when we venture into the world of KPIs, I think there are some fundamental, first 3s, right? I love this because we have a baby with us today, and I am keeping this in the podcast because I love babies and you all should too. And this is just the world of a working mom, working from home. Right? I mean, this is just what it is. But when you sort of show up to someone's business and maybe they're not tracking anything, right? Mm-hmm. What does that look like from your point of view of quick wins that business owners can look at their own business and say, okay, I'm just going to start tracking these first 3 things.
Yep.
So what do you think those should be?
I work a lot with profit and focusing on increasing profit, right? Because there's so much business that you can do where you don't have to take on more work, right? And you can learn and figure out what incremental changes you can make and increase your profit. So you might not be increasing your revenue, right? You're not doing more work and taking on more clients, but you're increasing your bottom line profit. So I really like to start looking at kind of a couple of profit metrics. So for me, I always suggest looking at project profitability. So, you want to know which service types, right, are maybe more profitable than others. What kind of your average profitability is on projects, and adding or, building on seeing what that trend is each quarter over quarter, and really learning what your project profitability is telling you. Because, eventually, that will give you some insight into your pricing. If there's any pricing discrepancies or things, maybe you need to work on. But it'll also, once you kind of start to level out and you're hitting consistency, then you realize you need to start working on efficiency, adding, activities in your business, which will then, help increase your profit again. So that's like a key one that I always suggest starting with. And then also looking at like your expected profit to your actual profit. So really like looking at like if you have a pricing formula, analyzing where you expected, like how much money you expected to make versus what the actual like line items are. And so that really helps you to see maybe, a lot of times I'll see clients who really will do more than what they outlined their services to include. And that'll be like a common trend, right? They're always like including an extra meeting or, whatever it is. And so identifying like what those extra activities are, or maybe where you spend extra time, then you can go work backwards and just update what is included in your services or update your pricing so that you are including that. If you're going to continuously add those items in, then, you have that information to build that into your pricing from the beginning. And then I always suggest like just taking a look at your annual revenue growth. So that is always a helpful metric because you can see and you can identify, okay, I worked on XYZ this year. How did that impact my revenue and my profit for the year? And then you can see, were these activities worth it? Should I continue to focus on these next year? Things like that. So really those three, the project profitability, your cost estimate to actual, and then your annual revenue and profit growth, that will give you a good insight into really like how your services are going, right? Like which ones are more profitable? How efficient are they? Kind of like all of that information. And that's where you're going to get like the biggest bang for your buck with your time to work on certain areas of your business.
Time is money.
Yeah.
I have learned that through and through. And I tell all of my clients that time is money. And we do a lot of mindset work on, so-and-so just wants to meet next week. Or I have a copywriting client that, sometimes they meet with our individuals that are actually writing the copy. And it's like, okay, how is that being folded back into the pricing? Because you're paying this individual.
Yep.
And you're not compensating for it on the pricing end.
Exactly.
And so while I don't do the strategic math, this is this queen right here, I always think of it as, and I have a few podcasts, I think, that outline this, and I'll link them in the show notes, but understanding where your time is going.
Yes.
Like that is a quick, non-monetary way to even begin to conceptualize where your day goes.
Yep, absolutely.
Because when I started doing that, right, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to time block. And time blocking is great. Don't get me wrong. It is efficient. And for someone that has an ADHD brain, I love it. However, what I would find myself doing is in this time block, I would also be layering things in. And this is when I tell people that if you're a service provider, it is so important to get like a Clockify or something and start and stop, and just put a quick label in there. If you're not already doing this as a service provider for your clients because you function off of hours, then this is, even when you're a coach or an entrepreneur, get in there and just start making some notes and then run the report at the end of the day or at the end of the week, whatever that looks like, so that you can really see where's your time going, And if you have huge gaps, like walking back through those and saying, okay, what was I actually doing during that time? And spend that little bit of time to plug it in. The amount of time that I got back in my day by even just doing 1 week was incredible, because I thought to myself, holy crap, I'm on this meeting that honestly I care nothing about. Or it could be shortened, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Now I've moved, some clients from an hour to 30 minutes and some from weekly to bi-weekly, but really getting in tune with like, what is your business asking from you? And what are you asking from your business? I think oftentimes we get in the rat race of, I'm going to start a business. It's going to be super great. And if you're a service provider, you easily get sucked into, if the client's like, hey, Can you do X, Y, and Z? And you become the yes person. Yeah, sure, I can do that. That's great.
Which is an easy, like you said, it's an easy thing to do because you want to be helpful. You want their needs. You want to make them happy, right? So you do end up adding all of these extra things in that maybe like weren't in the agreement for what you provide. And I love that you say that you suggest that, people track their time and see where it goes, because that is like a vital activity that I, tell clients they need to perform, right? Like if you go through and you prepare, we prepare a pricing formula, that's great. But it's not enough, right? Because if you aren't analyzing how you actually performed compared to that estimate, it really doesn't matter, right? So like if you are going to estimate that, it takes you an hour to perform, create like social media posts or whatever the service is, and it's taking you 3 hours for that week or that month or whatever your service is, and you're not adjusting, either figuring out on, the back end, like what can you do better to be more efficient, or if that really is the amount of time that it takes, charging more to your client, you're not going to earn the profit that you could be earning, that you should be earning, right? Because you are still performing those services. So you deserve that compensation for it. So yes, it's like a tedious task to do. But once you get like in the hang of it, it's really not that bad. I mean, like even, like when I work with clients on projects that are, like set deliverables and a set price, I still track all of my time, because sometimes you'll get like changes in what your client wants. I had one recently, they wanted to change the frequency of our meetings, still like look at the same quantity of data in the same, in one call or one time for the service. And so I had to look back and think like, okay, what am I cutting out that I don't have to perform, twice, because I'm performing it all in one time frame, but realize, I'm still looking at more data. So it's not just the price for one quarter worth of analysis. So even like if you are just, performing like a set, list of repeatable, tasks, it's still extremely helpful to know, so that you can go back and look for other clients. A new client that comes in that, requests something similar. It's just incredibly important data to have that will help your business grow.
Yeah. When you first started your business and you implemented the KPIs, can you talk a little bit about where you really saw your growth in an intangible way?
I mean, I think for me, it helped to like really provide the confidence in decisions that I would make. And that's something that I hear a lot of times from clients too. I had a client that I worked with recently, and she just didn't feel confident talking to her clients about like how to change, like if they wanted specific area, like they wanted to have a tailor custom made, service package. She said she didn't feel confident, like, having a conversation with them about what that pricing would be. So when you look at, certain metrics and you build on them and you understand like exactly what goes into things, you're able to like be in that CEO mindset of, I can make this decision. I know it's the right decision for my business. I feel confident telling, my clients what that number, figure, or, whatever it's going to be. And you just know, you don't have to question that it's the right decision for your business, for your client, anything like that. So I think that confidence is kind of like the biggest intangible that comes with looking at KPIs, looking at the data that people probably don't realize.
Yeah. When you mentioned, having the conversation with the client, when we're dealing with resistance, I think it's really, really easy to say, oh, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if somebody says, oh, well, that pricing's too high, I'm going to go somewhere else. It's really easy for us to backpedal and say, well, I'm happy to negotiate and I'm happy to, fit in whatever. But what we often do is we lower the price and we don't remove anything.
Totally. Yeah.
We just So when we're having those conversations and we get those feelings, what does it look like from your perspective on what we can do to sort of remind ourselves sort of what our worth is and how we can move from, all right, you want to renegotiate, that's great. What is something do you think that we can sort of adjust in maybe a package to make it quote unquote worth our while?
Yeah. So I think that, a couple of things, looking, you're like knowing what like your average project profitability is. So, right, like using that metric and really like understanding like where you have some wiggle room will be helpful in making those decisions, right? Like, can I, give a little bit more than maybe I would to some other clients, right? Because like at the end of the day, like we're people, right? Like like maybe you talk to a client that you really connect with and you just really want to work with them, and like you really like what they work on, like you feel very passionate about how they serve others. It's not wrong to lower your pricing or throw in a little bit more to be able to work with somebody. But just knowing what that like end result will be for your business is important, right? Like you can go into it with your eyes wide open, knowing, okay, maybe I'm not going to be as profitable on this project as I am on others, but I know I'm still going to meet my costs or exceed my costs and have X profit for me at the end of the day, right? Like it just allows you to know what like that end expectation will be. Because you're right, like a lot of times, like we do backpedal when people are hesitant or resistant to pricing. And when I work with clients on like developing a pricing formula, one of the things that, this is kind of like another intangible, it really helps clients to be honest with what they deserve, right? And it keeps them accountable to themselves, right? Like an actual like formula, right, will spit out what that number should be. And then the formula doesn't have any like mind drama about what that amount is. And I think that just helps clients to see what, just to feel confident again in what that should be. And again, that's not to say that you can't budge, right? Like, we all have wiggle room, but knowing if you can or what that consequence will be is just important to know.
Yeah, I love that. I want us to sort of come back to KPIs and the 3 that you listed. And I just want people listening to understand that this is not a big, scary thing, right? That you can ask for yourself. I think that it's almost looking at yourself, and I've used this a few times in the past, as a science project. Your business as a science project. If you are a person, right, that has come from sales or even HR, where you've had some sort of metrics that you've had to like measure against, it's worth both intangible and tangibly to measure some sort of things. And I know that you and I talked about this briefly before we started, but like the measure of our business is not from social media. It is not from society telling us, hey, you should be making 6 figures. Or I love the coaches that say, I made $10 million last year. They've been at it for longer than the social media highlight reel has shown it. So when we think about kind of some of the things, confidence, right? Moving the needle of our business forward and feeling really, really good about the services that we provide. What additional things kind of come to mind when you think about what success means maybe to you and your business? Like, how do you measure success in your business?
Yeah. So for me, I think a lot of times it comes down to, I started my business, right, to have like that flexibility with my family, right? Like to be able to slow down, be with them, not miss things, all of that. So I certainly was at a point with my business where I was burning the candle at both ends for sure. And I became burned out and I didn't really enjoy it, right? Like I didn't want to show up in the way that I knew I could show up for myself, but also for my clients and serve. So for me, it really is kind of like a pull and it's a feeling, right? Like a feeling. We talked about this, like a feeling can be a metric in your business.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're feeling that like resistance and hesitancy to do more, then, you know, pull back a little bit. And if you are feeling really motivated and energized and all of that from your business, you give more. And I think that that's when, you know, really like marrying the, you know, kind of like the feeling KPIs with starting with tracking the like profitability related KPIs is really helpful because you can see that like big picture of how will this affect me at the end of the day, right? Like, and can I make these sacrifices? And even if you are still feeling that like strain, you know, you see from the profitability perspective that you need to be doing more or something needs to be changed, you know, in that aspect, but you know, you don't feel like as energized and empowered and all of that with your business, it allows you to see like something has to change with my business. If I'm not feeling it, then I need to change something so that I can feel like I want to show up, you know, serve my clients, all of that. And then you see like how that impacts the profit perspective. Because you're right, like it doesn't have to be about like achieving some, you know, vanity metric or revenue or a profit goal that somebody else set for their business, right? Like you don't have to mark yourself against somebody else, right? Like it's about what works for you and for your business, but having that like baseline financial information and those metrics that you can measure yourself against is helpful because you know like where you have that wiggle room. And then you can also see like, oh, I changed XYZ, that felt good. How did that impact my business, right? And you can kind of see how they kind of like play against each other as well.
I love that. And I am already like starting the little ruminating of like, okay, now I'm going to start tracking some things. And what I would say too is we all get to a point in our business where like we're burnt out, we're tired of doing all the stuff and things by yourself. And one thing that was helpful for me is to really go back and look at the things that I'm already tracking, understand my profit, and understand what actually I have to pay myself, and figuring out if I can hire help. Because I think we also get to the point where we have this faux number in our head, whatever that is. Some of us, that's 5,000 a month. Some of us, that's 10, whatever. And we say to ourselves, when we reach X number, that's when I'll hire help. But in the meantime, we're burning the candle at both ends. We are stressed out. We're still missing family events that we have missed when we were in business. We're working on the road. We're, you know, it all comes crashing back. And so my whole thing with clients that I have too is looking at them and saying, okay, we are doing X amount of dollars, whatever that is. Can you allot a small chunk? And trust me, there are people, all different range of price points available that are
definitely
magicians in their own rights.
Yeah.
So it's, again, coming back to this kind of tracking for time, it's also tracking to see like, what can you leverage and give away? Because when you find someone that is helpful, big dibs to my assistant, she's amazing. But when you find people like that are able and willing to take things off your plate, by God, as a woman in business, please do that.
Yes.
Please let them be in their zone of genius so that you can be in your zone of genius and then everybody is happy. But I think finding somebody like yourself to figure out, what do I need to track? What is going to like get my brain organized to then understand where can I lift off and get some help? because that is so, so important. But I think also when we start leveraging sort of this data that we're collecting and everything really, really feels good, the KPIs for sort of the next level. I mean, I'm going to encourage folks, but would you encourage folks to get a second set of eyes to help them understand, right? Like,
Yes.
what does this all mean? And then what is the next level for them?
Yep. Yep, absolutely. So that, really is like a lot of the work that I end up doing with clients, right? So my favorite thing, I guess, to do with clients is analyzing the data and developing the quarterly strategy for their business based on what the KPIs are saying, or, their project profitability analysis, things like that. And, I think that it's really important to, once you get to that point in your business, not ignore this data, right? Because it is information, and information is power. And when you use that information, you can really make you can make significant gains without having to do more work or work hard, right? You can work smarter when you're using information that is specific to your business. And for example, right? Maybe quarter, for multiple quarters, a client realizes that, this one service is really the most profitable for them. And, maybe that's because their internal processes are more efficient. And maybe it's just a process that they enjoy more. And, having the data from a project profitability analysis, you can see which services are, most profitable, right? And you can kind of dig into that. Is it because it feels easier for me? Does this service have less pull or, pushback from clients, wanting to add in little additional, tasks and things. And, maybe it's I sometimes I see this actually often, a lower cost offer that you have. A lot of times service providers will want to really push and market their high ticket offers, right? But maybe that's not necessarily the ones that the market wants, or maybe it's not, for whatever reason, structured in a way that is the most profitable service that you offer. Well, having that data, right? From tracking this project profitability percentage KPI, you can see, okay, maybe I should really market and try to find more clients under this service, right? Because if it is going to yield you a higher project profitability, you'll be making more in the long run by not offering the service that's, not as profitable. Data is information, and information is power. That's really what that full circle perspective for why KPIs really are impactful for businesses, because it really just gives you that information and you're able to make those strategic decisions that create the biggest impact for your business.
I'm so glad I was able to pick your brain today. I learned so much. Absolutely. Where can we find you?
Yeah. So I hang out most on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is at Tomashoff. And you can also head over to my website, which is dtomashoff.com. I have a new freebie out that's a pricing for profit roadmap. So you can check that out there. And I also have one on how to start leveraging data in your business as well. So those are good starting points for, some quick information that you can make some impactful changes and decisions in your business.
Yeah. And when everybody finishes up with your freebies and needs a signature service, what is that coming from you?
So I like to do most of the time pricing analysis and a pricing analysis. So that will really look like determining what the correct pricing method is for your services and looking at all the cost inputs for your service, determining what your SG&A rate is. So a lot of times Service providers don't factor in all the costs to running a business, how much they have to pay for taxes, right? Like all of these underlying expenses that we incur as service providers. It's really factoring all of that in and determining what that cost for your service actually is, and having that formula for each of your service offerings. So that's a key signature offer that I have. And then my favorite that I kind of talked about earlier is looking at doing like a quarterly analysis where we go through the project profitability, we look at your pricing, we look at the financial metrics, and then based on what all of that is saying, we determine and develop your next quarter's strategy, like what the strategic items you should focus on. And then you kind of take that and run with that and implement on your own.
I mean, if somebody needs a deep dive into your brain, here we are. I love it. I love it. Dee, thank you so much for giving us your brain today. And I so look forward to downloading your freebies because your girl needs those. And also seeing you around the gram. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the show today. If you heard something that helped you, I would love it if you would leave a review and share it with your friends. This helps more people just like you become inspired to move the needle of their big CEO energy into a positive direction. If you would like to learn more about how I can help you streamline and position your business for growth or lead your business as a CEO, feel free to jump into the show notes with all of the links to find me. And don't forget to head over to Instagram so we can be pals.